3 spine-chilling Appalachian mountain tales revealed secrets of the haunted and cursed wilderness. Lila thought she was escaping the chaos of suburbia when she loaded her 2 children, Max and Ellie, into the car and drove into the hidden depths of the Appalachian Mountains. There, among the gnarled trees and roaring streams, she envisioned peace. Instead, the air thickened with an unsettling tension, filled with the musky scent of pine and damp earth that almost seemed to breathe. Little did she know, this ancient landscape harbored its own secrets. Dark whispers that curled around her like tendrils from the underbrush. It started softly, like the hushed murmurs of the wind weaving through the trees, flickering lights darting beyond the edge of her cabin's porch, playing a twisted game just outside her line of sight. Lila would shake her head, trying to cast off the creeping dread that settled in her gut. There were always shadows in the woods, she told herself. It's just my imagination, she murmured. But her heart raced at the thought of what might truly lie hidden amidst those darkened pines. As she attempted to acclimate to her new life, she found the neighbors were not welcoming, casting suspicious glances her way as they passed with their dogs or waved from their porches. Their stony silence added weight to her solitude, and even the local sheriff, a grizzled man with an indifferent demeanor, waved away her concerns like pesky flies. "Just your mind playing tricks, ma'am," he barked, leaving Lila with nothing but her swirling anxiety and the hollow sound of his departing footsteps. One afternoon, while Lila busied herself with the vines creeping up the porch, Ellie ran out to play. A nearby neighbor, a man with a charming yet unsettling smile, lingered too long at the property line. Lila watched unease wash over her as he stared, his eyes locked onto her daughter. Suddenly Ellie was gone. Panic surged as Lila called out, her voice echoing through the now abstruse woods. "Ellie, where are you?" she screamed, her heart pounding like a war drum. The vibrant life she imagined in the mountains twisted into a living nightmare. Shadowy figures seemed to pulse in the underbrush, the laughter of her daughter replaced by an ominous silence that chilled her bones. As night crept in, fog rolled down from the peaks, wrapping the cabin in a thick, suffocating veil. Each rustle of leaves sent her pulse racing, and the whispers grew louder, curling around her thoughts. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The haze felt sentient, lingering just a beat too long, as Lila stumbled across hushed conversations in town, tales of disappearances and strange rituals rooted in the land. Each story sent icy fingers down her spine, puncturing through her disbelief. As days dragged on, she confronted the charming neighbor, the unsettling smiles transforming into shadows of dark revelations. Her every question ripped open wounds of collective guilt, secrets entwined in blood and betrayal. Suddenly, just as she pieced together the town's haunted history, a chill settled over her like a funeral shroud. Something was lurking, watching from the darkness. She felt it, cold and heavy on her skin. A realization washed over her. Ellie was not lost to the woods. She was ensnared in something more sinister, and Lila was not the only one searching. The fog grew thicker, the whispers coalescing into one name, her daughter's name echoing through the murky twilight. The darkness was just beginning, and Lila realized, as terror rippled through her heart, that she might never find Ellie or escape the malevolence creeping ever closer. Lila trembled as she stood on the creaking porch, the fog wrapping around her like fingers pulling her deeper into the abyss. The shadows danced in the periphery of her vision. The whispers continued, her name mingling with Ellie's, as if the very woodlands conspired against her. She shook her head, attempting to shake off the mounting dread, but the cold weight in her chest only grew heavier. "Ellie," she cried again, her voice rasping against the chilling night air. The only reply was the distant hoot of an owl, echoing through the trees, mocking her silence. The mountain had swallowed her daughter's laughter, leaving only this dread-filled void in its wake. The flickering porch light dimmed for a moment, and Lila felt an icy breath of wind whip through the clearing, sending a shiver down her spine. The hairs on the back of her neck stood upright as a silhouette moved past the trees beyond her line of sight. Heart racing, she turned, her instincts screaming that something was very wrong. "Max, stay inside," she shouted, hoping to protect her son from whatever dark presence loomed close by. Max, oblivious to the creeping terror, peered out the cabin's window, curiosity shining in his eyes. "Mom, what's wrong? I can't see Ellie," he said, his small, innocent voice piercing through the suffocating atmosphere. Through the window, Lila glimpsed his cherubic face, unaware of the shadows gathering just outside. The cabin creaked more ominously around her. She moved toward the light, feeling drawn to the corners of the woods, where the darkness thickened. "Stay in the house, Max," she yelled, the urgency in her tone laced with desperation. She had no idea what might be lurking in the shadows, waiting to ensnare anything that ventured too close as she stepped down from the porch. A strange sensation swept over her, one that felt like fingers grazing her skin, tugging her back. But Lila forced herself onward, into the thicket, where the shrill whispering intensified. It was like the woods were a living entity, crying out for something or someone. With each step deeper into the woods, the ground underfoot felt more unstable, as if it were sinking into some ancient secret. It was suddenly quiet, unnervingly so, the kind of quiet that laid bare the tension of danger. Suddenly, a gasp escaped her lips as she stumbled across Ellie's favorite toy, a bright purple unicorn, half buried beneath layers of damp leaves. It was untouched, unblemished, the innocence stark against the encroaching darkness. "Ellie!" she screamed, her lungs aching. Panic coursed through her veins like fire. Then she heard it, a soft giggle, distant yet familiar, weaving through the suffocating silence. It floated on the air, taunting her, daring her to chase after it. The ghostly sound echoed back like a challenge from the forest itself. A frenzied rush overtook her as she pushed deeper, branches scratching at her face, the wails of the wind resonating louder in her ears. "I'm coming, Ellie!" Lila cried, heart racing, fear morphing into reckless determination. But the woods seemed to shift around her, roots crawling beneath her feet like serpents, pulling her further into the labyrinth. Where was she going? What was waiting for her in the heart of the mountains? The shadows drew nearer, whispering of ancient secrets, murmuring dark promises. And just as she thought she caught a glimpse of Ellie through the tree's blonde curls dancing in the mist, a terrifying howl shattered the night. It was not human, but something more primal. Lila froze. The dark walls of the thicket closed around her as dread washed over her. She couldn't move, couldn't scream. The whispering resumed, now a sinister chant wrapping around her like chains. "Find the girl, find the girl!" Suddenly, a figure emerged from the fog, looming and grotesque. In the dim light, Lila could just make out a face twisting in malevolence. What had she awakened? Her heart thudded painfully in her chest, each beat screaming for survival. And then another voice joined the chorus, one that sent chills crawling down her spine. "You shouldn't have come here." The edge of panic unfurled inside her, setting her nerves ablaze. The woods pulsated with an oppressive energy, shadows closing in, blurring her vision. "Ellie!" Now everything went dark. Lila gasped as her vision returned, but it was no relief. The world around her had transformed into a nightmare. Thick, swirling fog obscured her path as twisted branches reached for her like skeletal hands. She stumbled back, nearly losing her footing. Where was she? Ellie! The name tore from her lips once again. Desperation clawed at her throat, cutting off any flicker of hope. The shadows shifted and writhed, creating forms that were unsettling yet familiar. A silent scream lingered in her thoughts. The voice that had spoken to her echoed in her ears, chilling her blood. "You shouldn't have come here." It was not just a voice, but a judgment, a suspicion that wrapped around her heart like a vice. Suddenly, a flicker of movement drew her attention. Another shape, more definite now. Was it Ellie? Lila's breath hitched, racing toward the ephemeral figure, praying against all odds. "Ellie, is that you?" But the form dissolved into mist before she could reach it, leaving her clutching at air. Something stirred beyond the treeline. Lila spun around to confirm her fears. A shadow, darker than the night, slithered between the trees, inching closer. It didn't belong to any creature she knew. More ancient, more primal than anything from this world. She could feel its eyes on her, seeping dread into her bones, freezing her where she stood. "Mom!" Max's voice shattered the silence behind her like glass breaking. She whipped her head back toward the cabin's light, barely visible through the dense fog. A beacon of warmth in the chill that enveloped her. "Mom, where are you?" His innocence, untainted by the horror that surrounded her, sent a new wave of fear crashing over her. "Max, stay inside. You have to stay." The force of another howl echoed through the forest, cutting her off. This time, it was followed by a cacophony of distorted voices, rising in a haunting melody, intertwining with Ellie's giggles. Now a twisted mockery of joy. Lila's mind raced. She couldn't let anything happen to her son. With every ounce of strength she could muster, she turned back, plunging toward the direction of the cabin. Her heart drummed loudly in her ears, each thud competing with the thundering whispers. "Find the girl, find the girl." The mist thickened, twisting into sinister faces that grinned and grimaced, each a reflection of Lila's mounting dread. She could feel their cold breath against her skin, and panic surged like a tidal wave. She couldn't look back. If she did, chasing her own reflection, she stumbled into a clearing. In the center, an ancient oak loomed, its gnarled roots sprawling outward like the veins of the mountain. Something about it called to her, whispered secrets buried deep within. "Ellie?" she whispered, stepping closer. The air pulsed, heavy with latent energy, dark and tangible. Then she saw it. A trail of miniature footprints leading away from the tree, directly into the underbrush. A sense of urgency crushed her chest. "Max! Ellie!" Panic closed in as a rattling growl erupted from the depths of the woods, a sound that vibrated through her very bones. Time wrenched away from her as she weighed desperately. What lay ahead? Darkness or hope? She took a faltering step forward. Was it a scent of her daughter's shampoo clinging in the air? The weight of despair grew heavier with every breath. Just as she began to move, the ground shook beneath her. "Help!" The cry was raw, echoing in the trees around her, carrying a sorrowful urgency that stung her heart. Descending from the shadows, terrible faces glistened with a ghastly reminder of what lay beyond. Would she dare to uncover the truth cloaked in the whispers of the woods? Or would she succumb to the darkness? Lila took a deep breath, edged forward, and plunged into the waiting shadows. What horrors awaited her within that cursed forest? The air thickened with an impending disaster as she reached into the unknown. The shadows closed in as Lila ventured deeper into the forest, the oppressive mist wrapping around her like a choking shroud. Each step felt heavy, as though the ground beneath her was pulling her down into its depths. She could feel her heart pounding, a deafening drum synchronized with the whispering wind that howled around her. "Ellie!" Her voice echoed, desperation lacing her call. The trees loomed tall, their twisted branches clawing at her, as if trying to keep her away from whatever truth lay ahead. The unsettling whispers transformed into a low chant, the words twisting and curling in the air, bringing with them an unsettling nostalgia. Felt wrong. Yet part of her couldn't shake the feeling that the voices were calling for her, somehow beckoning her deeper into the nightmare. The trail of footprints led her further from the cabin, the ground betraying her, spurting mud as she pressed on. Each print seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Were they real, or just another trick of this wicked place? But the scent of Ellie's shampoo lingered, almost intoxicating. It filled her with fleeting hope just as quickly as it churned her stomach with dread. Suddenly, the ground shifted again, and the trees shuddered as if alive. The chanting peaked into a discordant frenzy. "Find the girl! Find the girl!" The words entwined with laughter sharp and shrill as the mist began to swirl violently. Shapes materialized within the fog, twisting closer, eyes glowing red, their faces masked by the horror of the forgotten. Lila stumbled back, terror washing over her as she recognized the features of long-lost friends, family members she had buried in memories. Were they here to torment her, teasing her thoughts? Or were they warning her? "Stop!" she shouted, the chaos creeping into her voice. "What do you want from me?" But the forest only laughed back. "You shouldn't have come," came the response, thick with malice. Chilled her very marrow. She pressed forward, unwilling to be swayed by the horrors around her. She couldn't stop, not until she found Ellie. The path grew narrower, shadows bounced against her like taunting echoes. But then, she saw a flicker of light through the thickening mist. A lantern hung precariously from a gnarled branch, swaying gently in the unnatural wind. Was Ellie close? Ellie! Lila sprinted toward the flicker, hope igniting her veins. But as she reached it, reality twisted. The lantern swung violently, revealing faces of anguish within the glass. Each pressed against it, some familiar, some foreign, all distorted by fear. Lila faltered, breath catching in her throat. A low rumble reverberated through the ground beneath her, and the faces began to howl, the pitch rising with her rising panic. Was she losing her mind? "Mom!" A voice broke through. It was Max. It was clear as day despite the escalating chaos. His youth and innocence peeled layers from her fear, pushing her forward once more. She turned to the direction of the voice, cutting through the fog, and sprinted toward it, ignoring the mounting dread. The chanting intensified again, twisting into a raging storm of sound. The shrieks echoed between the trees. "Stay away! Stay away!" Lila's feet felt heavy, as if pulling her back. Her breath was ragged, her vision blurred by the deluge of terror. Yet, she pressed on, pushing through the fog towards whatever awaited her on the other side. And then, she stopped dead. Before her lay a twisted altar, made of stones and roots, encircled by a dance of shadows. Within the center, a small figure was tied, a girl with golden hair. "Ellie! Mom!" Ellie cried, terror etched across her small face, eyes wide with fear. "Ellie!" Lila reached out, but the moment broke as a howl split the air, and she was yanked back into the depths of darkness. The forest screamed, an angry wave of sound crashing over her. What horrors lay in wait for her at the altar? Would love be enough to free her daughter from the grasp of that dark place? Lila gasped as she was thrown back, the pain of impact grounding her in the chaos swirling around her. The scene blurred, swamped by the rising mist, but the pitiful cries of her daughter echoed endlessly, clawing at her heart. Dark shadows danced across her vision, morphing into grotesque shapes, flailing with jagged fangs and hollow eyes. They were closer now, rising from the earth like the damned, urging her to despair. "Get away from her!" Lila shouted, scrambling to her feet. Her voice cracked with fear as she frantically searched for Ellie, pushing through the dizzying fog. "Just hold on, Ellie. I'm coming." But the altar was obscured, its outline flickering as if controlled by a puppet master of shadows in the distance. She could barely make out the chant, growing stronger, taunting her as it morphed into her family's names, her friends, distorted memories echoing around her. "You shouldn't have come, you shouldn't have come," it wrapped around her, tugging at the frail strands of her sanity. She shook her head, fighting against the voices that clung to her like a leech. "No, I'm not afraid of you." That wasn't true. Fear was slithering down her spine, chilled by the knowledge that whatever held Ellie was tormenting her too. A glimmer of defiance ignited. If they wanted her to falter, she had to dig deeper, push through the darkness. Determined, Lila shot forward, weaving past the shadows that twisted and coiled like living vines, their whispers sharp as blades. As she burst through the fog, she stumbled upon a clearing. The altar stood rigid, ancient stones jagged and slick with something unidentifiable. Shadows writhed around it, pulsating like a heartbeat, foreboding and alive. Ellie was still tied, her small frame trembling, trapped in a web of darkness that coiled tighter with every pulse of the altar. The sight stung Lila's eyes, filling her with desperation. "Ellie, I'm here. I'm gonna get you out. But just as she made a move to approach, the shadows surged, forming a barrier between them, swirling aggressively as if rebuking her. The air thickened around her, stinging her lungs. You know the price. The whispered threats rippled through the space, cutting through her resolve like a knife. You won. Tea leave. Empty-handed. Lila froze, a bead of sweat trickling down her temple. She felt the weight of their words settle in. What did they want from her? What did they mean? Each breath was a shallow gasp, an ache swelling in her chest. To save Ellie, would she have to sacrifice something? Someone? Mom! Ellie screamed, eyes brimming with tears, vivid and pleading. A tremendous pain pierced through Lila's heart, overwhelming her with a surge of instinctive love. In an instant, she found herself torn. Could she take on that darkness? What was left of her if she failed? Suddenly, the ground vibrated beneath her feet, a low growl rumbling through the altar, and Lila felt herself being pressed back, pulled into the shadows. They surged forward like a tidal wave, dark hands reaching for her. You for her choose. Panic consumed her. The choice was looming, grotesque and twisted. She reached for Ellie, desperate and unyielding. I'd trade my soul for you. Don't take her. No, no. Ellie wailed, her voice desperate and fragile. But the shadows were laughing now, a cacophony of dread that echoed through the clearing. The winds picked up, swirling debris and haunting memories, drowning Lila as hope slipped through her fingers like grains of sand. Shadows crept closer, and the altar pulsed with a dark hunger. In that agonizing moment, Lila had to decide. Would love be enough? Or would it awaken a terror so fierce they would both be lost forever? And as the shadows closed in, she whispered, I will save you, Ellie, no matter the cost. But was it a promise she could keep? The air crackled with dark energy, and in that suffocating moment, Lila felt the weight of the shadows thickening around her, pressing against her skin like a heavy fog. She could see Ellie, still bound, fear radiating from her small frame like a beacon. And with every heartbeat, the sinister whispers grew stronger, drowning out her thoughts. Mom, help me. Ellie's voice was a thin thread, breaking Lila's heart anew. But the shadows were relentless, twisting and undulating, their laughter echoing off the trees like a sickening melody. You for her choose, they clamored, each word pulling her deeper into despair. A sickening realization gripped her. There was no escaping the price they demanded. Lila looked at her daughter, eyes wide and pleading. Ellie was the light in her life, her everything. She had fought through storms to protect her, and now faced the ultimate storm, the wrath of whatever darkness lay before them. Without hesitation, Lila plunged forward, fueled by desperation. Stop! I'll give anything. To her surprise, the shadows halted, momentarily silent, as if considering her offer. A dread-filled silence fell over the clearing. She could feel their icy scrutiny, eyes like pitiless voids assessing the sincerity of her words. But Lila had never felt more certain. She could endure any price, any suffering. The darkness could not take Ellie. Anything, she shouted again, her voice echoing back with a terrible finality. That a sharp cackle erupted, signaling the shadows' delight. So eager, but the cost is not so simple. What will you sacrifice, mother? Lila's heart raced, and panic clawed at her throat. Nothing tangible would suffice. This wasn't a matter of money or material things. They wanted something more sacred. The thought alone made her gut twist. But she couldn't think of that. She had to keep her focus. She took a deep breath, and her mind moved to Ellie's future. I'll trade my own memories, she shouted, voice shaking with resolve. My past, take it all. Just let her go. The revelation landed heavy in the air. The shadows whispered among themselves, their voices a slithering wind, chilling her to the bone. Memories? One hissed, fascination creeping into its tone. So deliciously tragic your memories will fade, drift into oblivion. Another chimed, an eerie delight lacing its words. I don't care. Just let my daughter go. Lila screamed, desperate and furious. The shadows coiled tighter around her, a vortex of despair tightening its grip, and for a moment, she felt like she was drowning. The memories they sought flashed through her mind: birthdays, laughs, the smell of Ellie's hair. Would letting them take that from her be worth it? Ellie cried out, "Mom, don't, please." Tears streamed down Lila's face, each drop heavy with the weight of a mother's love. The shadows were inching closer, closing her off from the light of Ellie's spirit. "Do you accept our deal?" they taunted, growing louder, more insistent. Lila stood firm, heart pounding. "Yes, do it." The world around her began to distort, blurring and twisting in a kaleidoscope of wretched colors, as if the shadows flooded her mind with their darkness. Pain flashed up her spine, like needles stabbing her brain. She clutched her head, feeling pieces of herself, loved pieces, slipping away, drifting into uncharted nothingness. And as she felt a shattering wave of confusion drown her thoughts, something within her whispered a lingering threat. What if she lost more than memories? What if she lost who she was entirely? With one last glance towards her daughter, Lila felt an echo of regret ripple through her. But the shadows held their grip, pulling her away. She was slipping, and the whispers grew louder, mingling with her fading memories. "Goodbye, Mom," Ellie's voice echoed, fading into the mist. "No," Lila screamed, fighting against the pull, but the darkness was relentless. And just as everything fell into shadow, she realized that love, while powerful, could also be the undoing of everything she held dear. In that abyss, a chilling thought struck her: what if she made the wrong choice? In the weight of that uncertainty, amidst the fading cries, a figure emerged from the thick mist. Unfamiliar but somehow hauntingly familiar. "You think you can save her?" it sneered, shrouded in the very darkness that claimed her memories. You haven't even begun to understand the cost. And as Lila felt everything she once was slipping away, she questioned if salvation would come at a cost too steep to bear. Lila's heart raced as she stared into the abyss of shadows. The figure loomed, shrouded and twisted, its face obscured yet achingly known. Memories flickered like dying embers in her mind, threatening to vanish forever. The presence was wicked, its voice dripping with malice. "Do you know what you've done?" it rasped, a chilling smile evident in its tone. "Everything you love can be shattered, Mother." "Who are you?" Lila gasped, dread clawing at her throat. "It matters not who I am, only what I can take from you." Its laughter echoed like a haunting wind, chilling her to the bone. From behind the figure, shadows danced closer, swirling around her like predators sizing up their prey. Panic surged, urging her to fight back, to resist. But as she tried to summon strength, more pieces of herself splintered off, drifting into darkness. Memories of lullabies and bedtime stories whispered away, leaving only a raw ache where love once thrived. "Your daughter," the figure taunted. "She will suffer. Do you think love is enough to protect her when she no longer has you? What will she remember of you when you become just a ghost?" Each word was a dagger, sinking deeper into her gut. The shadows began to morph, twisting into shapes that reminded her of Ellie: the smile, the laughter, the sparkle in her eye. Pain exploded inside Lila. How could she let this happen? "I'll fight you. I'll do anything." Ah, but what remains to fight with? The figure stepped closer, its outline barely definable in the wavering shadows. "You are losing yourself, and in your loss, your daughter becomes the vessel of our new game." Lila's breath hitched. "What do you mean?" She felt as if the ground was slipping beneath her, the mists whispering horrors she'd never before imagined. With a flourish, the figure gestured behind it, and shadows split apart to reveal Ellie, still bound and vulnerable. The girl's eyes were wide and terrified, but now they flickered with remnants of hope. "Mom, please," Ellie cried, her voice piercing through the dark. "Fight. Don't let them win." Lila reached out, desperation flooding her veins. "I won't give you anything more. I'll find a way. I swear." Shadows surged forward, inches from her face, swirling like a storm ready to strike. "Promises won't save you, dear Lila. Only surrender. Embrace the void." And she walks away unharmed, your light extinguished. Grief pierced through her heart, mingling with determination. But just as she prepared to resist, the figure beckoned once more. This fight was chosen for you. In the depths of despair lies your true sacrifice. Only then will you understand love's fragility. Suddenly, silence enfolded her. It was suffocating. Then, a sound, a haunting melody, a song only a mother could hum. Lila's memories flickered uncontrollably, flashes of her daughter's smile, her laughter, the warmth of their embraces all mingling with shadow. If she surrendered, what would remain? No, she shouted, her voice a tremor against the steady looming dark. I'd rather die than forget. The shadows wailed, a cacophony of rage and loss, crumpling momentarily in response to her defiance. Lila felt the tendrils of darkness retreat just slightly. But at what cost? Clenching her eyes shut, visions spiraled into a whirl. Ellie's birthday. Her first steps, shared secrets under the stars. Each memory felt like an aching reminder, a tether she couldn't afford to lose. Yet she sensed the shadows encircling more fiercely, pressing in with merciless intent. What if, the figure hissed in a whisper low and sinister, I grant you a choice. One that could save her? What if you could have it all back if you just surrender your last breath? Terror gripped her. What was the point of survival if saving Ellie meant losing herself entirely? As they lingered there in silence, heartbeats echoed in the air, heavy with the promise of suffering. Could she afford to choose? And as the shadows shifted again, revealing Ellie's terrified gaze against the backdrop of dark, Lila found herself teetering on the edge of despair. A choice loomed larger than any darkness she'd ever faced. Choose wisely, Lila, the figure taunted, its voice filling the void, for the price of love can swallow all. With one last desperate glance at Ellie, she whispered, what now? The figure only smiled, and the darkness bloomed, ready to reveal the final cost. A cold wind swept through the haze of shadows, rushing against Lila's skin like icy fingers dragging her closer to despair. The figure stood unmoved, a dark silhouette in a storm of memory and anguish. She felt the whispers clawing at her mind, urging her to back down, to submit, to let the darkness consume her. But Ellie's voice cut through the chaos. Mom! It trembled, laced with fear but also defiance. You've got to fight. Don't let it take you. I'm trying. Lila cried back, her voice splintered by desperation. I will not let it win. Then you must decide. The figure laughed, diabolical and chilling. It seemed to revel in her turmoil, as shadows twisted around Lila's limbs like serpents coiling for a strike. What is more precious to you, Lila? Your daughter or your existence? Every pulse of her heart ached with dread. It was a cruel choice, tearing at the very fabric of her being. Did she even have a chance to win back what she loved? Time felt distorted, and in that moment, every second stretched into an agonizing eternity. I will not choose between us, she yelled defiantly, her voice echoing against the void. But the figure only leaned closer, its breath chilling as it whispered, do you think you can defy the inevitable? You will lose what you fight to hold on to. Images cascaded before her. Ellie on her wedding day, laughter around a dinner table, a quiet moment by the fire. They swirled in her mind, bright and joyous, yet so fragile, teetering on the brink of oblivion. Her resolve hardened. I'll fight until my last breath, Lila shouted out, igniting a surge of strength deep within. The shadows recoiled momentarily, as if struck, and Lila seized the moment. She pushed against the darkness, willing it back, rooted in the memories of the love she felt for her daughter. Each step forward felt like an electric charge, and she could almost reach out to Ellie, who seemed to push against her bonds. Hold on. I'm coming, Lila gasped, determination washing over her. But her vision blurred, the shadows shifted swiftly around her. A darker, more suffocating layer of malice closing in. What can you possibly hope to achieve? The figure sneered, its voice dripping with disdain. You can't rescue her from what you are about to become, a wraith lost to despair. Then let me be that wraith. Lila's words were fierce, but inside, doubt gnawed furiously. What if she lost it all? What if surrender was the only way to save her? Ellie's cries intensified, striking a chord deep within her. "Mom, please, don't give in." With each heartbeat, Lila felt the weight pressing down. Her memories were slipping. Yet, with every claim to the darkness, a flicker of light glimmered in her resolve. If this was a game, she would play it with every ounce of her being. A thought sparked. "What if I embrace the darkness but not for you?" she whispered fiercely, addressing the figure. "What if I use it to protect Ellie?" A flicker of surprise shot across the figure's inky face, creating a momentary crack in its power. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath her. The shadows swirled violently, enveloping them in chaos, threatening to consume all. "You will regret this decision," it hissed, but Lila's soul burned with a fierce hope as darkness threatened to swallow her whole. Lila understood. She had to become more than just a mother. She had to become her daughter's beacon. Even in despair, she closed her eyes, feeling the shadows flare with angry energy, but also warmth, like embers stoked back to life. "Ellie," she screamed, "I choose you." Then, there was nothing but silence, as if the world itself held its breath, waiting for the next echo of a decision made in the depths of darkness. And just like that, an unbearable tension settled in. What awaited them in that silence? Would Lila become the wraith, or would she find a way to sever the ties of darkness forever? Without answers, she stood trembling, heart pounding, waiting for the figures in the shadows to reveal their next cruel move. What new horror would rise against her will? The silence stretched on, a heavy weight pressing down on Lila's chest. With each heartbeat, she felt the intensity of the moment crackle in the air, the darkness poised to react. The figure, its face shrouded in shadows, paused as if contemplating her defiance. Lila's heart raced. Was this her chance, or had she only invited greater torment? Then, a low rumble shook the ground beneath her feet. Lila's eyes flew open, and the dark silhouette twisted, gesturing wildly as if orchestrating a relentless storm. "You think you can just choose, Mother?" it shrieked, voice echoing like thunder. "You've already made your choice. You're bound to the dark now." A scream lodged in her throat as the shadows churned, twisting higher and higher, reaching for her. Lila could feel them creeping along her arms, cold and unnerving, as if they were trying to pull her away from the anchor of her love for Ellie. Panic surged within her. The ground seemed to sway as if it were alive. "Mom!" Ellie's voice pierced through, a desperate lifeline. "Fight back." But how? The darkness wrapped tighter around Lila, its grip almost affectionate, as if promising solace while submerging her into despair. She felt her memories slipping through her fingers like sand. Ellie's laughter faded, replaced by voices of torment, echoing her failures and fears. "Embrace the inevitable, Lila," the figure coaxed. "Let go. The pain will cease." "No," she roared, shaking her head violently, trying to dispel the whispers that clung to her thoughts. Every fiber of her being screamed against submission, against surrendering. If she could harness this dark force, maybe, just maybe, she could protect Ellie. With a sudden clarity, she summoned her memories, the warmth of a hug, the sweetness of Ellie's laughter, the joy of a simple afternoon spent together. "You will not take these from me," Lila shouted defiantly, her voice carving through the shadows with purpose. The figure recoiled, its shadowed form flickering like a flame in the wind. "Foolish woman, you misunderstand your strength. You think love is your weapon, but love alone cannot save you." But Lila felt the flicker of hope, roaring back to life. "Love is the only thing that's real." She screamed into the void, challenging the darkness. "I will not be alone." As if in response, the shadows convulsed, swirling violently. The tendrils began to dissipate, revealing glimmers of light breaking through the inky veil. Was it simply an illusion, or had she struck a nerve? "Ellie!" she cried, reaching into the thick blackness that felt simultaneously suffocating yet strangely inviting. The ground beneath her cracked, revealing a bright path lined with golden light that cut through the shadows. Hope flickered. Then she felt it, a warm pulse against her chest, like a heartbeat of her very soul, a connection stronger than any darkness. It urged her onward, pulling her toward Ellie. "Find me." The voice rang clear as Lila took a step forward. The shadows encroached fiercely, snapping at her heels. "You cannot escape your fate." It shrieked, but she pushed through, her heart racing as she clawed at the air. Desperately searching with a final desperate leap, Lila broke through, the darkness shooting away from her like a retreating tide. She landed in a world of swirling mist and muted colors. Ahead, she saw Ellie standing amidst the fog, fear etched on her face but hope ignited in her eyes. "Mom!" Ellie shouted, arms reaching out, but the shadows weren't finished. They rose behind Lila, swirling and writhing with fury. "No," Lila promised, a sudden determination surging through her. "I will not lose you, not again." But as she advanced, the darkness morphed, reshaping into a monstrous form. Its eyes glinted with malice, and Lila realized she had awakened a greater horror than before. "Then come to me, Lila," it growled, body shifting like a snake preparing to strike. "Let us see just what you're willing to sacrifice." The tension sliced through the air like a knife, leaving a lingering question. What would Lila face next? What twisted choices loomed ahead? Would she still have the strength to fight? Lila's heart thundered as the monstrous shadow surged toward her, eyes like molten coals fixing on her with insatiable hunger. Time slowed, each second drawing out the desperation that coiled tighter around her throat. "Ellie!" she screamed, forcing the words from the pit of her being. The sheer agony in her voice echoed across the fog-drenched landscape, a beacon of her unwavering love. "Mom!" Ellie's small frame trembled against the backdrop of swirling darkness. She stood bound, a figure of innocence trapped amidst the chaos. Lila's gaze flicked between the encroaching shadow and her daughter. The choice was agonizingly clear. "I will save you." The monstrous form drew nearer, taunting her with every trembling breath. The shadows twisted, mocking her resolve. "You still think love can conquer this darkness?" It crooned, its voice smooth as silk but caustic like poison. What a naive notion. Ignoring the taunts, Lila let memories flood her mind. Ellie's laughter, the sparkle in her childish innocent eyes, their shared moments of warmth like sunlight breaking through a storm. This was it. She wouldn't let this evil take her light. With each heartbeat, Lila conjured strength, fierce and unwavering, building an impenetrable wall of determination. Did the shadows not know? Love was more than just a concept, it was power. Could push her forward. "You may take my memories," she yelled, "but you cannot take my love. I will fight until my last breath for my daughter." Then the chaos erupted. Shadows writhed as Lila charged forward, channeling every ounce of her love into a radiant beam of light. The darkness recoiled, hissing like venomous snakes, recognizing the threat. The air crackled with electric tension, and for the first time, Lila felt as though she was catching fire. She was on the cusp of reclaiming Ellie from the jaws of despair. "Mom!" Ellie cried, fear mingled with fierce hope. "You can do it!" The shadow monster growled, an aggressive challenge, flaring with rage. "You think a puny spark can conquer me?" It roared, body twisting and writhing, shrinking back from Lila's advancing light. "Watch me!" Lila shouted, voice emboldened by desperation. The radiant warmth expanded, crystallizing into a brilliant force that pushed the shadow back into the thicket of night. All the love she held surged in, igniting her very being until she became a conduit of unwavering power. She felt time pause for an electric heartbeat, an eternity suspended between hope and despair. With a fierce push fueled by maternal instinct, she thrust forward, breaking through the churning fog toward Ellie. "I'm coming, sweetheart. Hold on." In a final decisive moment, Lila lunged, her hands reaching for Ellie while she poured every ounce of her essence into a brilliant burst of light. The shadows recoiled, unraveling like a broken tapestry as the sheer force of love tore through the darkness. The shadow monster shrieked in outrage, flailing against the onslaught of light, but it was too late. Then it happened. A blinding wave surged through the mist. An explosion of love and warmth wrapped Lila and Ellie. The horrors of the forest seemed to dissipate like shadow before the dawn. Lila's heart settled in the comforting presence of Ellie, their connection reigniting like a flame. "Mom!" Ellie cried as the bindings dissolved into mist, the oppressive darkness retreating in defeat. Lila embraced her daughter, holding her so tightly it felt as if they could merge into one. "I've got you, Ellie. I'm never letting go again." As the last remnants of the nightmares retreated into the depths of the forest, Lila's heart swelled with triumph. The shadows were defeated, leaving nothing but the whisper of a breeze among the trees. The weight of fear that once clung to them lifted, revealing the majestic beauty of the Appalachian landscape, undulating hills and brilliant skies. "Look, Mom," Ellie beamed, her innocence radiating joy. "It's beautiful." Lila looked into her daughter's eyes, seeing remnants of their battle mirrored there a spark of resilience. It's our new beginning." Hand in hand, they stepped forward. As the sun gleamed through the fog, illuminating their path ahead, they embraced the freedom of escape from darkness. Lila knew they would face the future united, love their greatest weapon against any shadow lurking in the corners of the world. With the mountains standing strong around them, they smiled at the journey ahead. Together, they would rebuild a life filled with laughter, joy, and memories untainted by darkness. Now, dear friends, this is where you come in. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on exclusive stories like this. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Smash that like button now to help spread our community and support the channel. And flood the comments with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about this chilling conclusion. Plus, why not share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this ending? Don't wait even one more second. Let's grow this amazing adventure together.